guys, and welcome back to another video. My name is Char and this is Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. Welcome to 2021. I am so glad that 2020 is out of the way, like most of you are. I'm under no illusion that when I woke up this morning that the world was a better place. I think that there is a lot of things that are going to continue from 2020 into the new year, but it is a fresh year. Let's have some positivity and talk about my favourite books of 2020. I originally was only going to have a top 5. I've done top 5s for the last couple of years because I don't generally read enough or like enough books to do a top 10. However, when I was picking out my top 5 books, there were so many books that just needed to be talked about in this video, so I managed to get a top 10. I've mentioned before how I don't always rate my favourite books of the year 5 stars. Sometimes I can rate it 4 stars and the book will continue to grow on me. My star rating system is very arbitrary. So some of these books will be rated 4 stars on Goodreads, some of them will be rated 5 stars on Goodreads, but in general I don't really stick to ratings. I kind of do that just as a visual quick look. If you go onto my Goodreads account, I very rarely talk about star ratings on my channel, and very rarely does it actually mean anything. I'm going to do these in no particular order, apart from my top 3 books of the year. Some of these are technically honourable mentions because there is one reread which couldn't not make this list. You probably already know what that book is if you know me. And then I'll leave my top 3 to last. I had a really good reading year in 2020. I read 83 books total. Hopefully I can beat that again this year, and I just have so many books that I received for Christmas that I'm so excited to get to. I'm in such a good reading mood right now. I hope I can make a good start. Let's get right into the books. Let's start off with one book then that is technically in my top 3, but I'm not counting it because it's a reread, so it's technically an honourable mention, so I'll put it as, you know, number 10 on this, even though these are in no particular order, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I've talked about this book non-stop, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but this has just been one of my favourite books of the last 2 years. I still can't stop thinking about this. The TV show came out this year, which is phenomenal, and I also got gifted the scripts of this book for Christmas as well from the lovely Shannon, so this had to come on this list because it just means so much to me. It basically follows the turbulent relationship of Marianne and Connell, and that is all I'm going to say on it because like I've said, I've talked about it so much. I've got so many videos on it. Go and check those out if you're interested to hear more about this book. But still one of my all-time favourites, and I reread it. I read it 3 times this year and adored it each time, so I had to include it even though it is a reread. Then I'm going to talk about The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin, this coming in at number 9. Like I said, they're not really in any particular order, but this is the next one I'm going to talk about because I love this book a lot, but I'm struggling to read the rest of the series. I might have bumped this up if I'd read more of the series, but also it's a fantasy and those are harder to stick in my memory, so it's coming at number 9. This book is really difficult to describe, and I don't want this video to be really long, but this is basically set in I'm not sure if it's a future Earth or it's an alternate Earth-like planet that has these seasons that are not like our seasons, but they have a 5th season that is some sort of natural disaster, and there's a group of people called the Origines who are blamed for these, and these are basically people who have powers that can manipulate the Earth. It follows 3 female characters who I love dearly. It has a phenomenal twist at the end. It follows gender roles, it explores racism in this fantasy world, and it's just a fantastic read. I highly recommend you go and check out some more reviews of this because other people can talk about this book so much more eloquently than me. I struggle to sum it up, but I just found the writing style in this was fantastic. I thought it was so unique. It was an amazing world that was built. I really need to get to the rest of this series, but this book sneaks in at number 9. At number 8, we have The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie McCasey. This was a gift, again, of Shannon, who I will mention so many times in this video, but she sent me this as a moving gift when I moved into my own flat in the summertime. This book is I don't know how it's really categorised. It's kind of a picture book graphic novel, and it's basically a bunch of artwork that is often paired with some sort of inspirational quote or a note on positivity. I've showed this before Charlie McCasey has got an Instagram where he posts a lot of these artworks and several others that you can access for free. But it's just a lovely feel-good book that I just keep thinking back to. Whenever I feel like I need a pick-me-up, I'll often flick to a random page in this book. If I'm thinking of feel-good books to recommend to other people, I think of this book because I think it's just such a lovely... It's a lovely book. It's great for a gift, and I think so many people would get so much out of this. So this is my number 8. Coming in at number 7 is The Militarist by Jessie Burton. I read this for the first time this year, again on the recommendation of Shannon from 155 Books. I absolutely adored this book. This has been sat on my shelf since I worked at Waterstones in 2014, so for about 6 years, until I finally picked it up. This is about a young Dutch woman who is married off to a wealthy man, and the relationship is a bit wrought, it's a bit tense, she's very naive, but one of the gifts she gets as a wedding present is this doll's house, this cabinet that her new husband has bought her. She begins to order some figurines for this house. However, when those figurines arrive, she notices strange and peculiar things about them, and as time goes on, these figurines start to reenact things that are happening in her life. It's very interesting. It's very bizarre, and I think it is one of those books that you will either love or hate. You'll either understand it or you won't. This book is just delicious, is the only way I can describe it. It does have one use of the N-word, which I'm not going to defend. I think it's easy to defend it and say it's set in the 1600s. There's kind of a purpose to it, but that doesn't necessarily justify it. So make your own decisions about whether you want to read this book because of that. But I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to read more Jessie Burton. Coming in at number 6 then is Mallory Blackman's Noughts and Crosses. I actually read the first 2 books in this series this year and really enjoyed it. This is set in an alternate universe where the white people are oppressed and black people are in control of the government, in control of organisations. They're the wealthy ones, they have the highest standing in society. And it kind of goes through the events that have happened in black history, so the civil rights movement in particular, and looks at those on its head. It twists them. And I think it is such a phenomenal book. I read this for the first time this year. It is aimed at 12 to 13 year olds. It is a bit younger with some more adult themes. I'm really surprised I didn't read this when I was younger because I think I would have loved it. I'm very interested in what I would have thought about this when I was younger. I obviously can never know that, but I just thought if I loved it this much as an adult, I probably would have loved it even more as a child. And like I said, it's just so intense, it's so wonderful. It's dark and gritty and it hurts, but it is a very good book. The second one, not quite as good in my opinion, but still a really important read, and I do want to read the rest of the series in 2021. Now into my top 5 books of the year, and I think I'm going to have to go with Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid as number 5. I really enjoyed this book when I read it back in the summer. This was highly praised and highly discussed on BookTube, and it is about the performativity of white allyship around black issues. We follow Amira, who is a black woman who is a babysitter for a white child. One day at a supermarket, she is accused of kidnapping this white child, and a man records it on his phone. He and Amira begin to start a relationship, and it explores the performativity of him and his allyship, and Alex, who is the mother of the child that Amira babysits, and just shows the difference in actual support for black people, and it explores how Amira feels in those moments about what help she actually wanted as opposed to what help she got in the instance at the supermarket. So it's a very interesting look. It was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, and I think that puts some people off, but I think this is really readable, and I think it's one that definitely should be on a lot of reading lists. I'm actually going to be rereading this in January because it is my book club's book pick of the month, my in real life book club for January. So I'm excited to give it a reread and see what I think of it. So this comes in at number 5. In number 4 is a book I listened to the audiobook of, and it is King and the Dragonflies by Kaysen Callender. I really enjoyed this book. This is a middle grade book about a young boy discovering his sexuality, and how it starts is him being disgusted at one of his friends coming out as gay. The main characters are all 12 to 13, I believe, and King's brother has recently died, and his final words keep replaying in his head, and it is about the repression of sexuality, how children are much more aware of their sexuality than we realise, and it is just a gorgeous book. I listened to the audiobook of this, which is actually on Spotify. If you type in King and the Dragonflies, it'll come up. I listened to it, I loved it, and I have so many feelings about it. Even now, this is a book I read back in May or June when I was living in my old flat, and I still think about it a lot now, and I'm scared to read more Case and Calendar books because I'm scared that they will not hit me as much as this one. But I think it's beautiful, and I think there needs to be more queer middle grade, and I think there is becoming more queer middle grade, which is great. I love this to death. Now we are into my top 3, and if you follow me, you probably already know what these books are going to be because they are books that I have talked about a lot. In 3rd place, we have Affinity by Sarah Waters. I read this book back in January. I listened to the audiobook and studied it because this is the book I'm actually going to be doing my master's dissertation on, which I'm really excited about. This is about a young woman who recently had a mental break, and to help her recovery, her parents have sent her to a women's prison to become kind of a companion to the prisoners. It's set in the Victorian era, so it's a historical novel. And our main character actually takes a particular liking to one particular prisoner who is actually a spiritualist. She can talk to dead people, apparently. And it follows their relationship. And it looks at mental health. It looks at the prison system. It looks at sexuality. It looks at deceit. It looks at so many wonderful, amazing topics. I'm going to be rereading this again in the new year because like I said, I'm doing my master's dissertation on it. And what I want to do is make my annotations, obviously, for my dissertation, but also to do a in-depth review of this because I want to have more in-depth discussions with you in the new year on my channel. That'll be coming up in another video. But I just think this book is so beautifully done. Sarah Waters is one of my favourite writers. I absolutely adore her. This is my favourite of her books so far. I think I'm in the minority there because everyone seems to love Fingersmith and Tipping the Velvet. But in my opinion, this one is even better. Go and read it. It's also quite short for a Sarah Waters book. She's known for writing like 550 page plus books, but this one is actually 350. So quite short. Good place to start. And it is her debut. Now we are finally onto the top 2. In 2nd place is The Bible, an anthology of personal narratives and essays about bisexuality, which is edited by Lauren Nicodemus and Ellen Desmond and is contributed by so many different people. Again, I've talked about this one a lot, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but this is basically a collection of essays about being bisexual. It does also talk about pansexuality. It explores the difference between bisexuality and pansexuality. It follows all different genders. It follows all different races, ethnicities, and in some ways sexualities, because it talks about people maybe coming out as lesbian first and then realising they're bi, or coming out as bi and then later coming out as lesbian. It talks about all sorts of queer experiences, and I think it's a fantastic collection. Again, it's a very short book, so you could get through this really, really quickly, and I've just found out there is a volume 2. I think this book really helped me come to terms with my sexuality this year. I finally came out to some people closer to me. I had been out really since I was like 12 to some people, but properly out and acknowledging my sexuality this year. I just think that this is such a wonderful, wonderful book. I'm also quite surprised that non-fiction is so high on this list, but there we go. That just shows how good this is. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about, my favourite book of this year, here is The Beehive by Sarah Crossan. This book absolutely broke my heart, and it follows my favourite tropes of all time, which is years-long relationships that don't quite work out despite everything that happens. And this one takes it to the extreme because this is about Anna and Connor. They were having an affair for 3 years. However, Connor unexpectedly dies, and that leaves Anna to deal with the grief herself. She has to do it in private. nobody can know that she's upset about this man. And I thought that this was such a raw, honest look at grief, at what it means to love somebody, how that impacts the family. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. This book in no way condones the affair. I think a lot of people will be put off by this book. You cannot get away from the cheating aspect of this book. However, it doesn't condone it. It is merely exploring a scenario that can happen. It looks at the human emotion in such a raw, truthful way, and I sobbed my eyes out. I realise I haven't really talked about trigger warnings in this video, but I will leave triggers down below. This one has a lot, obviously, for death and grief. It also has child loss and so many really deeply emotional topics that I think you do need to do your research before going into this. It's not a good read if you yourself are grieving, but it is phenomenal. I can't wait to read more Sarah Crossan. I can't wait to read more books like this, because this is truly the kind of book I adore, and it is written in verse. I never thought I'd be saying my favourite book of the year is a book that was written in verse. While I'm not against books written in verse at all, I just didn't think I would love it this much, and I truly did. It's also one of the most beautiful books I have on my shelf. I had to gift a copy of this to Shannon from 155 Books because I truly need somebody to talk to about this book. It was glorious. So my no particular order top 10 ended up being given an order throughout this video. It chopped and changed a bit, and I made my decisions. So these are the top 10 books of 2020, the books I absolutely adored this year. If you have read any of these, please tell me about them in the description down below, because I need discussions about them. Were there any of these books that you absolutely hated? Because I think it's fascinating how so many books can be somebody's favourites and then somebody else's complete worst book of the year. Please also let me know down below what your favourite book of the year was, and whether you think I should read it, because I think it's very easy to say this is my favourite book, but do you recommend it to me? You guys have watched me long enough now to know what I like, so I'm really interested in that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for making 2020 a fantastic year on BookTube, despite how awful it was in reality, and just thank you for all your support on here, on Twitter, for being there for me. Everyone who sent me a book this year, I recognise every single one of you, and it has been great. I cannot wait to share 2021 with you. I've got so many ideas for my channel. I just need to get on board with them, and I hope you have as much fun this year. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll leave my links down below to Twitter and Goodreads and all of that really fun stuff. Come and follow me on there and talk to me about books, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Alright, take care. Bye.